Well, there's three things I like to try to achieve when creating designs for embroidery. Number one is to digitize the designs so they are machine friendly. That means that they have minimal jumps, trims, and color changes, and they sew out well while they're embroidering on your machine. Number two, I want them to be visually pleasing. I want them to have the appropriate amount of detail. I want the light to reflect on the threads and to look dimensional, because that is the attribute that sets embroidery apart from other mediums. And lastly, I like to have low stitch counts whenever possible, because it just runs faster on the machine. And if you are in business, the more you can produce, the more money you make. Now, I very quickly created the design that you see on screen, and it is what I would consider standard embroidery. It's kind of lifeless. It's just a regular fill stitch with a satin stitch going around it. Nothing wrong with it. But at 4 inches in height, which is a pretty large area to have a big fill and just a satin stitch, the stitch count can get relatively high. So I have 11,000 stitches within that design, which will take a while to sew and not necessarily give you a wow factor. So we're going to use this as the baseline, that 11,000 stitch, and we're going to try to recreate this and do it a little bit differently to see if we can get some more dramatic effects with lower stitch counts. So I'm just going to pan up a little bit in my design, and we'll get to the original piece of artwork right here, and there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something just as basic, but instead of having a fill stitch, we're just going to make this into an applique. Now, because I have all these pieces of artwork and they are, artwork files, I basically created this very quickly using the artwork tools within the software. All I have to do is grab that one piece, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the applique. And when I click on the applique, it comes up very, very quickly. I can see that it has a width on it. And when I go to my properties, and let's just pan over, bring our properties up, my width on my stitch is 3 millimeters. I'm going to change that to 3.5 millimeters, hit enter, and it'll make it a little bit wider. Now, the other thing I can see is I have a placement stitch, a tack down stitch, and then it's going to sew the border, which is just a regular satin. And what I can do is, while it's highlighted, I can go right over top of one of the colors that I want, and it'll bring up my placement, my tack down, and my border color. Now, it was defaulted to black, so if I want to change the color of that, satin stitch, I just will hit on border. And because I had selected that color, now I have a border color, which is the same. Now, this is pretty much all you need, because if I look at this, it has actually a placement line, which is on the outside. Then it has an inner tack down, which does 2 running stitches, and that's if you want to cut it on the machine. Or you can always save an SVG file if you have a cutter that you want to cut this on. But what I might want to do is add some underlay to this. Within my settings here, I did have the ability, if I wanted to, I could add a zigzag underlay, which would help to tack down that material. But I'm going to turn that off, and I want to put a regular underlay down, but there's nowhere here to put regular underlay. I mean, I can adjust the inset, I can adjust the density, I can adjust the width of the stitch, I can even adjust what type of applique I want, if I want a blanket stitch or a motif, but I don't see anywhere where I can add underlay. If you want to add specialty, I guess, properties to this actual applique, you can do that, but you have to right click while it's selected, and then you can break it apart. And when I break it apart, and I'm not going to do it right now because I'm going to show you right here within this area, right here, when I click on this, let's just unclick that. When I click on this here, that is my applique. And my applique is all selecting at the same time because it's grouped together. So what I want to do is I want to right click and break it apart. And now I have the ability, if I click off of the object, to just grab that outline. And when I grab the outline, now you'll see that I have all kinds of other things I can do. I can have it, so that I can miter it, I can lap it, I can do anything to the corners that I want. I can actually come in here, add more pull compensation. I can do jagged edge. I can, come in here and add all kinds of commands. But the one that I really, really want to do here is I want to make sure that I change the underlay. So I'm going to come here to underlay, and I'm going to click on it. I just have that selected, and I want to do a contour underlay, which is going to give me a stitch going all the way around the inner and outer part of that satin stitch so that it's going to give me nice, clean satin lines. And that's really all I have to do to that one to create an applique. So easy peasy, and the beautiful part of this is if I select those objects, I can see that I have 2,488 stitches. So I can use a piece of twill in here and I can create a really nice, coverage. Even if it's not just a regular one color twill, you can use shiny materials, you can use printed materials, whatever you want to do, and add a little bit more depth using an applique for that design as opposed to just having a regular fill. So that's one option right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something a little bit different with this one. I'm going to do an applique again, but I'm going to manually do my placement and my tack down. And the reason why is we have a really cool tool within the EL Digitizer that when I have that border selected, I can actually come to this one right here, and let's just grab that same color so I know that color is selected. And oops, I did not want to do that. So let's just go out of here. Actually, that's fine. It was selected already. So let's just go out of here. And I'm going to tell it to be a convert to steel run. Now a steel is a satin stitch. It's a fixed width satin stitch. And this is giving you the option of doing a run at the same time. So now if you look at this, I have a steel stitch, but I have a run going through the center. Now the cool thing about this is, again, when I grab this, I can go right over to my another color, doesn't matter what color it is, but I can say I want color number 2 to be a different color. And now if you look, I have actually a steel with a different color run. And when I grab this again and I go to look at it, and you can't break it apart, but the cool thing is in my properties, I actually have the ability to change this from a run to a double run to a motif to a bean stitch. So I can take that line, that second line that I have, and if I want to add, let's say, a motif, I can create a motif stitch, and then I can go down to my motifs. Right now it's set as a line, but I can come here and I can select any one of my motifs that I want, and I'm just going to try to find something that I think will look kind of cool here. So let's just go all the way up here and grab a motif that I think will look good. I'm going to try to find something that kind of looks like a star. There is a ton of them to choose from. Finding the right motif probably takes longer than digitizing that entire thing, but I'm just going to use this one, number 308, because it kind of looks like a star. And I'm going to have that in place, and there I can see that it is going down, but it kind of looks like it is a little bit too wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the width of this stitch, and let's change this to 3.5, and that's going to pretty much line up perfectly. So there I have my stitch already done, and it looks great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some dimension to this, and I'm going to do this as just a regular fill stitch. So let's just choose a fill stitch, and right here is my fill. I'm going to choose a lighter stitch, and I'm going to start, let's say, right over here. And let's just pan up. So I'm going to pan over on my design, and we'll start right here, and we'll do from this point forward. And let's just come here, grab that fill, make sure that I have the 6 dots in the center highlighted. That means that my fill is active. I'm going to turn off the 3D just so I can see this a little bit better. And I'm going to start right here, and let's just put a point here, here, and I'm going to make sure that when I come into these objects, these are going to be the angles that I'm doing. So I'm going to come here, here. I'm going to cut this a tiny little bit short. So let's go with a line tool. So I'm going to go here to here, cut this a little bit short, go to here, and then hit enter. And then all I'm going to do is put a point right here just like that. And then I'm going to hit enter. So there is my fill. You can see it there. Now that is a full density fill, but we're going to change that later on. But I'm going to very quickly just go through all of these objects and digitize those. So I'm still in my fill mode. I'm going to start, let's say, right over here, come over here, and I know I'm going to go this angle, so I again want to come in nice and soft into that corner. I don't want to have a lot of stitches there, so I'm going to go there, hit enter, and then I'll put in a stitch direction just like that. That's all I need. I'm going to do the same thing here, come over to here, here, and here and enter, and I can very, very quickly create all of these objects. You know, it's not really that hard and it's relatively fast. So I'm just going to put my angle in right there, hit enter, come right here, do this one. Again, trying not to come in hard into that little tiny center. I don't want a lot of, stitches that are building up there. Hit enter. And now I'm going to come down here like this. And then I'm going to come right over to here. And I'm going to put a point right here. And then this one's going to be right here, 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 and enter. And then put my stitch direction. Just enter those. Again, here, 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 and enter. And let's put a stitch direction there and enter that one. I'm going to pan over a little bit, and then let's just do this one. So I'm just coming in very, very quickly and digitizing all of these objects. So it's just a matter of putting a stitch direction, which I'm using the point from here to the center, so that I'm going to get movement. You can kind of see in 3D that this is all changing direction. It looks pretty good. And then I'm going to come right here and here and here and back to here, and again stitch direction, hit enter, and one last piece, and again watching to not come into tight into this, and I can see all these little trims happening actually. Oops, that I didn't want to do, so that one I'm gonna have to change. If you ever go too far, like I had that one, I can come in and I can edit my inclination afterwards and just drag one over. So don't worry if you bypass a step, you can always go in and change it afterwards. Now I do have a whole bunch of trims in here, but I'm not going to worry about that at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come right into here, grab that color, that last color that I just did, and I'm going to move it into the sequence. So it's going to actually, be down right over to here. So I'm going to make sure that I have that one right over here. And that way I know that my fill is underneath of the other objects. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these fills and I'm going to modify this because I'm going to make this an applique, but I want to have a very loose fill on top of it to try to bring that 11,000 stitch count way down, but have extra dimension. I mean, this will be pretty cool with a steel stitch and then this really cool kind of motif going around the outside. So I'm going to come to my sequence view, and actually I'm going to take these two objects right here because those are the original fill, and I'm going to move them up to the beginning just so that they're kind of out of the way, and that way I'm not getting confused with those anymore. And if I look at my sequence view, I can see that they are now at the top of the list, and I can always delete those afterwards. But this is the color right here, and when I select those, I have all those selected, and let's just go to outside of my 3D, and you see all of my little scissors there. That's telling me that there's trims, and I really don't want trims in that design, but I'm going to go in and kind of manually manipulate this so that I don't have any traveling stitches, because right now there's underlay underneath of here. If I do a quick redraw, and let's just go to our redraw, and I'm going to show you sort of how this plays out. If I come here and just see how this all stitches, there's that piece, you can see all of this underlay going down. So I have all this underlay that's going down and these traveling stitches in here, and I really don't want to see all of that when I'm sewing that on top of a piece of material as an applique. So let's just close that, and then within my settings, I'm going to go to this one right here. This is actually called Travel on Edge, and I set this up specifically so you could do this for this type of application where you want to have your stitches kind of not show through, meaning my traveling stitches. I don't want to travel towards the center. I want to make sure I have a lower density so that I can either see the twill underneath, or if I'm doing this in Mylar, if I want it to be really nice and shiny, I'd use this exact same tool, Travel on Edge. Now watch what happens when I click on this. I'm going to get boom. Okay, that gives me beautiful stitches that are actually set up at 1.2 millimeter density. So I'll be able to see the fabric through this, and the stitch count is going to be relatively low. But I still need to go in and I need to adjust all of the start and stops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into this object right here, and let's just pan. Actually, let's make this a little bit smaller just so we can see it. And I'm going to come down a little bit so that we can see it on screen. And I'm going to grab with my select just this object right here. So there it is. And I'm going to hit the Q key, and I can see that my start is here and my stop is here. So I'm going to move my stop to here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my next object, which is this one right here. So I'm going to grab this one. Let's make sure I grab the right one. I'm going to go back to select, so I make sure I grab this one. So there's that one. I'm going to hit the Q. This time I want the start to be right here because I stopped down here, and I want to make sure that I'm going to put the stop up at the top. So the stop is going to be up here. And then I'm going to hit the next object, which is right here, and I'm going to do my start, and I'm going to do my stop. And then I'm going to do my next object right here, and same thing. I want to start here, and I'm going to stop up here. So I'm just moving the start and stop positions of all of these little objects and making sure that, I made sure now I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to stop down here. And there, that should be good. And if I ever kind of lose my train of thought, so I want to see, I can say, okay, start, and let's start right here and stop up here. And then the next one is here. So I want to start here and stop here. That means that the next one right here, and let me just pan down. So let's pan and move up on this. And if I move up and I do this one, I'm going to hit the Q key, and I'm going to, let's see, I think I stopped down here, and I'm going to stop up here. And there we go. And then the next one, which is here, I'm going to make sure that I start here and I end right down here. So I'm sort of ending at the bottom, but I started at the top. And then I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to make sure that I start right here, closest to where I just ended. And I'm going to stop up here. And then I go to the next one. And let's make sure that I choose the right one. And now I'm going to start here, and I'm going to end down here. And if I go to the very last one right here, I'm going to make sure that I start right down here, and I'm going to end up at the top. And I might have to just pan over like this. But now, if you look at this, I have absolutely no little trims. It did take me a minute to resequence all of these, but this is going to sew from beginning to end and give me really nice, beautiful stitches. Not bulletproof. It's just going to be pretty awesome. Now I'm going to go out of my 3D because if I'm going to make this an applique, I still need 2 more stitches, and it's going to be a running stitch. So I'm going to go to my running stitch, and 2.5 millimeters, which is the default, is fine. And I'm going to just zoom out a little bit so that I can see the entire thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my input right here for the placement. Just go like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and here, and here, and here, and here. And then I'm going to enter, and I'm going to go to my last object in my property, which is that one there. Let's just make this a different color. We'll make it green, and I'm going to close the shape. So now I have a perfectly closed shape with a running stitch, and I can see right now it's right on top. Okay, and that's fine. Now I want to do the same thing again, but this time I'm going to use a different color. Doesn't really matter. I'll use, blue or purple or something. Let's just use blue. This time I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start here, and I'm coming on the inside a little bit because this is my tack down. I want my placement stitch, which you could use as an SVG cut file, to be out further than the tack down. I want this to actually hold. And I'm going to cut it short there. I can see that it's cut short. I'm going to grab this one again. I'm going to close the shape so that I know it's a perfect closed shape. And then I'm going to go to the run and I'm going to do a double run so it goes around 2 times. And then I am done. But the only thing I have to make sure that I do now, let's just close that so we have more real estate, is I have to take these last 2 stitches that I just did and I need to move them up in the sewing order right to here, okay, right to this point right here, so that we end up having the stitches where we need them. And I can see I also have a little problem here. It looks like I have 2 stitches on the right after each other. So this one right here, I need to move back first. And let's take this one because this was the first design. Somehow I moved it in the order. It needs to be right there. So now it's part of that original design. This one here, I'm going to move this one, and actually let's make sure that I don't have the other one selected. I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to move them up in the order so that they are right before we start that next color, so right there. And now I have that stitch in place. And it looks like this one actually needs to be moved as well. So this one here, it didn't move it, so let's just grab that one. And I'm going to move this one. That is the tack down. That one's going to go right over here. So there we go. So now I have those in place. So this design is essentially done. It's going to look great. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this one, select it, go all the way down to the bottom here, and I'm going to hold the shift key, select all of those. I'm going to then right click on here. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste. And then I'm going to pan over on my screen just like this. And so I can see that one. And I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to move it right over here because I'm going to do a different process. I'm going to make sure that the first one that I do is actually, and let's just zoom out of this so we can see all of them. Now, here's the thing. This one that was at the very beginning, I remember that that was 11,000 stitches. So I can see it's 11,072 stitches. Let's just get rid of that one real quick. We'll delete it because I don't want to sew that out. That takes way too long on my machine. I'm also going to delete all that artwork now because I don't need it. And I'm going to look at the first object. And I think I remember this one was like 2,800 stitches, I believe, when we looked at it. Yeah, or 2,488 stitches. So that's the first design. Now I'm going to look at this one here. And this one is going to be all the way down to the motif, which is right here, and select that. This one is 3,000. Nope, it's going to be a little bit more. Sorry, I need to go here. Let's grab that one, and let's grab all of these right to this point right here. And for whatever reason, let's just grab that one, and then come down here and select. Actually, I have a lot of things selected here. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to grab that first one there so it is selected. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom, hold the shift key down, and select all of these together. And for some reason, it's not letting me select them all as one, so I'll do it the old-fashioned way. I'll just grab these as well. So there we go. That is selected now too. Okay, so this is 7,400 stitches. So keep in mind that this design right here is 7,400 stitches, which is still considerably less than the 11,000 stitches that we saw before. And if you just think of a regular fill stitch with a satin stitch, we're going to sew this on the machine, and I think you're going to be pretty amazed at the results. As I said, I'm going to do one of these as an applique. So this one's going to be an applique, just a regular applique. This one's going to be an applique with that kind of travel on edge fill at 1.2 millimeters with a steel and a motif. And then I'm going to use the exact same design, but instead of putting a piece of twill down, I'm going to actually put a piece of mylar down, or opaque cellophane. And I don't need to use any applique material. I just lay that opaque cellophane down, tape it in place, and run the design, and you're going to see the results. So let's go run the machine, and we'll come back and show you the results. We have 3 awesome designs, and they look great. You can see how they are visually impacting. They were machine friendly, and they have low stitch count. So we checked all the boxes. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Inner Circle members, don't forget to download your lesson files below. Not a member yet? Join the Inner Circle and get access to exclusive bonuses, hands-on training, and everything you need to master embroidery digitizing. Click the link in the description to get started. Want to keep learning? Check out these tutorials next and take your embroidery skills even further.